Robert Whittaker believes Justin Gaethje may have been affected by his brutal knockout loss to Max Holloway, as he appeared slightly off in his recent unanimous decision victory over Rafael Fiziev. While Gaethje still managed to secure the win, Whittaker noted that something seemed different about his performance compared to their first encounter back in 2023, where Gaethje claimed victory via majority decision. Whittaker pointed out that Gaethje's timing, movement, and overall sharpness seemed diminished. Given Gaethje's reputation as one of the most explosive and relentless fighters in the lightweight division, any slight drop in performance becomes noticeable. Whittaker speculated that the knockout loss to Holloway could have played a role in this change. As a fighter himself, Whittaker understands how devastating knockouts can be, not just physically, but also mentally. The impact of such a loss can linger, affecting confidence, reaction time, and the willingness to fully engage in high-risk exchanges. "I just thought there was something off," Whittaker said during a discussion about Gaethje's latest fight. "I thought he might have been half a step behind or something. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big Gaethje fan, and Fiziev is a tough fight for anyone, especially if you're just going to take it to him in the hands. But Fiziev took this fight on 12 days notice and looked so good at the start of the fight. Comparatively, I felt like Gaethje had a little bit more in him in their first fight. I don't know if you saw that as well, but it just felt like it wasn't the same Gaethje we saw pre-Holloway. Does that make sense?" Whittaker's observation raises an important question. Has the damage Gaethje sustained from the Holloway fight affected his fighting style moving forward? Fighters who suffer brutal knockouts sometimes become more hesitant, more calculated, or even lose some of their durability. While Gaethje is known for his incredible toughness and willingness to walk through fire, the cumulative effects of such wars inside the octagon can't be ignored. Despite these concerns, Gaethje remains one of the most dangerous contenders in the lightweight division. Whether this perceived drop in sharpness is temporary or a sign of long-term effects remains to be seen, but Whittaker's remarks highlight the potential impact of past wars on a fighter's future performances. Moving on, Paddy Pimblett isn't the least bit concerned about Michael Chandler's so-called illegal moves ahead of their highly anticipated clash at UFC 314. The outspoken Liverpudlian, known for his fearless attitude and brash personality, addressed Chandler's history of using questionable tactics inside the octagon. Pimblett made it clear that he won't be relying on the referee to protect him. If Chandler resorts to dirty tricks, Pimblett will have no problem dishing out his own brand of payback. Speaking to journalists, Pimblett dismissed any fears about Chandler's tactics, emphasizing that it's ultimately the referee's job to handle such situations. He pointed to Chandler's controversial fight against Charles Oliveira, where Chandler repeatedly landed hammer fists to the back of Oliveira's head without any intervention from the referee. Pimblett argued that it's up to the officials to enforce the rules, but if they fail to do so, fighters have to take matters into their own hands. "If you're not cheating, you're not trying. Know what I mean?" Pimblett said with a smirk. "That's on the ref. He was throwing hammer fists at the back of Charles Oliveira's head. Charles had to move his head, or the ref needed to say something. I watched that fight the other day, and he hammer-fisted 12 times. He knows exactly what he's doing, but it's one of those things. If I were in that position, I'd be saying, 'Ref, what are you doing?' That was some bad refereeing." Pimblett didn't stop there. He also referenced Dustin Poirier's infamous fight against Chandler, where Poirier was forced to bite Chandler's fingers to escape a choke. The moment sparked controversy, but Pimblett sees it as a justified response to an opponent bending the rules. "I've seen the Poirier fight too," Pimblett continued. "Poirier bit his finger to get out of the choke. I'll do the same thing if that happens. I'll bite his finger, try to cut it off with my teeth. It's one of those things. I always say, if you're not cheating, you're not trying." However, recent developments suggest that the Irish superstar may have other plans beyond combat sports. Reports indicate that McGregor is now setting his sights on an entirely different arena: politics. The former UFC double champion has been making waves with his outspoken criticism of Ireland's current political landscape. Recently, he has hinted at the possibility of running for Irish president, urging citizens to support him over candidates from existing political parties. While McGregor has always been known for his bravado and larger-than-life personality, this move into politics marks a significant shift in his ambitions. Further fueling speculation, McGregor took to X, formerly Twitter, to announce a high-profile meeting with former US President Donald Trump. The Irishman revealed that he would be traveling to Washington, D.C., along with his family to meet Trump in the Oval Office on St. Patrick's Day. McGregor's tweet read, "President Donald Trump, I depart for Washington today with my family. I look very forward to our meeting tomorrow on St. Patrick's Day at the Oval Office. office. I am ready. Godspeed, Ireland. This unexpected development has sparked intense discussions across both the MMA and political spheres. While some fans see this as another classic McGregor publicity stunt, others believe he is serious about pursuing political office. McGregor's connection to Trump isn't new. The former US president has previously expressed admiration for the Irish fighter, acknowledging his impact on combat sports. During a past meeting with Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin, Trump made notable comments about McGregor, stating, "I do happen to like your fighter. He's a who's who. He's got the best tattoos I've ever seen. I don't know if I'm a big Conor McGregor fan, but you have a lot of great Irish fighters. Actually, great fighters. I don't know what that is, but Ireland's always had a lot of good fighters. You know why? Because they're tough people, they're smart people, and they're passionate people." McGregor's potential entry into politics raises many questions. Would his popularity as a fighter translate into political success? Is this a genuine career shift or just another way to stay in the headlines? Regardless of the outcome, one thing is certain: when Conor McGregor makes a move, the world takes notice. In other news, Rafael Fiziev has been cautioned against his potential move to the 145-pound featherweight division following his recent loss to Justin Gaethje at UFC 313. The Azerbaijani fighter has reportedly been considering a weight class drop after suffering a unanimous decision loss to Gaethje, but Chael Sonnen, a former UFC fighter and analyst, strongly advises against it. Fiziev took the fight against Gaethje on short notice after Dan Hooker withdrew due to a hand injury. Despite stepping up and putting on a competitive performance, Fiziev was unable to secure the victory. In the aftermath, discussions began circulating about a potential move down to featherweight, but Sonnen, known as the American Gangster, believes this would be a serious mistake that could negatively impact Fiziev's career longevity. Speaking on his YouTube channel, Sonnen made his stance clear. Fiziev is talking about going down to 145 pounds. First off, that's not a good idea. The years of your career, and when it's all done, the only thing that's real is the money and the miles. You will shorten your career by going to 145 inches. Sonnen emphasized that historically, fighters who cut too much weight and move down a division tend to experience more harm than success. He challenged anyone to find examples of fighters who have thrived after making such a move, arguing that the risks often outweigh the rewards. Historically speaking, you can't find me examples of when that has worked. Jose Aldo is the one who comes to mind as someone who has had success moving down a division. The former featherweight king has recorded several big victories since moving to bantamweight, but that's the exception, not the rule. Sonnen's perspective highlights a long-standing debate in MMA, whether drastic weight cuts are beneficial or detrimental. While some fighters, like Aldo, have managed to successfully transition to a lower weight class, many others have struggled with extreme weight cuts, leading to diminished performance, increased injuries, and a shortened career span. Fiziev has yet to officially announce his decision, but if he does drop to featherweight, he will have to contend with a highly competitive division featuring elite fighters like Alexander Volkanovski, Ilya Topuria, and Max Holloway. What do you think? Should Rafael Fiziev take the risk and move down to 145 pounds, or should he stay at lightweight, 155 pounds, and continue competing in one of the UFC's most stacked divisions? UFC 316 main event rumors: Islam Makhachev versus Movsar Evloev rematch in the works. The MMA world is buzzing with rumors about the potential main event for UFC 316. According to Kevin K on Twitter, a highly anticipated rematch between Islam Makhachev and Movsar Evloev is reportedly being finalized. Kevin, a known insider in the MMA community, went so far as to stake his reputation on the accuracy of this news, claiming that Makhachev is already deep into his training camp for the fight. While the UFC has yet to make an official announcement, UFC President Dana White has previously acknowledged that both Makhachev and Evloev have expressed interest in facing each other again. The two were even seen discussing a rematch at the UFC Performance Institute, PI, earlier this month, adding further weight to the speculation. Evloev, on the other hand, has been steadily climbing the ranks and has yet to taste defeat in his professional MMA career. If the fight is confirmed, it would mark one of the biggest rematches in recent UFC history, as both fighters share a deep history in combat sports. In addition to the rumored Makhachev versus Evloev main event, Kevin K also hinted at a high-profile co-main event featuring Kayla Harrison versus Juliana Pena. Harrison, a former PFL champion, recently made the jump to the UFC and is considered a major force in women's MMA. A matchup with former bantamweight champion Pena would undoubtedly be a huge draw for fight fans. The event is rumored to take place on June 7th in Newark, New Jersey, making it a highly anticipated summer showdown. However, with no official confirmation from the UFC yet, fans will have to wait for an announcement from Dana White or the fighters themselves. If this rematch happens, who do you think takes the win? Islam Makhachev or Movsar Evloev? Does Evloev have what it takes to dethrone the dominant lightweight champion, or will Makhachev continue his reign at the top? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Colby Covington recounts. Heated confrontation with boxing fan outside arena. Colby Covington, known for his outspoken and polarizing persona, recently shared a story about a heated exchange with a boxing fan outside an arena. During a podcast appearance, Covington revealed that the confrontation took place while he was attending the Javon Davis vs. Lamont Roach fight this month. The UFC welterweight contender, who has had his fair share of altercations both inside and outside the octagon, found himself face to face with an aggressive fan who wanted to test him. Covington's brash personality and relentless trash talk have made him one of the most controversial figures in MMA. Over the years, he has had public feuds with top fighters like Kamaru Usman, Jorge Masvidal, and even his former teammate Dustin Poirier. However, he has also been confronted by random fans who either dislike him or want to challenge him. This latest incident was another example of how his reputation often follows him outside the cage. Recounting the event, Covington said, "It's definitely happened a couple of times. I was front row last weekend for the Javon Davis fight, and this boxing fan outside the arena was like, 'I'll f you up, you ain't nothing.' He was looking at me, saying, 'Let's size up right now. Let's do it.'" Despite his aggressive persona in media appearances and press conferences, Covington's real-life responses to these situations seem far more measured. Rather than escalating the altercation, he simply laughed off the fan's challenge. "I just laughed and said, 'All right, man, I'm glad you believe in yourself. That's awesome, dude. But deep down, I didn't want to engage,'" Covington admitted. The former interim welterweight champion explained his reasoning for not taking the challenge seriously. He pointed out that he fights professionally for big paychecks in the UFC and has nothing to prove in street fights. "What do I have to prove in the streets? I fight for a big paycheck in the UFC octagon. If you're so tough, why aren't you fighting in the UFC against the best fighters in the world?" he added. Covington, who is coming off a controversial doctor stoppage loss to Ian Gary, has now failed in 3 separate title attempts. Despite his setbacks, he remains confident in his ability to make another championship run. However, given his age and the ever-evolving welterweight division, the path to the top will not be easy. In closing, Covington made it clear that while fans may have their opinions about him, one thing should unite everyone. This is America, and you can have different opinions, but one thing we all need to agree on is that we need to love our country.